Hi guys, welcome to another video. I'm going to go over all of the plugins that I use on Relay and show you how you can set them up to be the exact same. In the background here, I'm just spectating some fives from the CA Discord. They're going for the 14:15 GM time. But we're going to focus on the plugins here on the right sidebar. So we're basically just going to go through all the plugins that I have starred and on, and I'm going to show you how I explain them, or how I use them, or even some that I don't have on. I'm going to uninstall this one. Okay. So this APM plugin I used to use. It's really nice. It just tracks your APM, and then it tracks your average. The one on the right is the minutes. The one on the left is the average over time. But I don't use it as much anymore. Boost information, that goes on the left, and it tracks your, let me turn these off. The boost information tracks your stats on the left. Here, I'll go, here, you can't see on the left. One sec. So I have to squish the client for this, but basically you can go, I'm going to go over to the bank, sip my pots. So if I sip a super combat, now it shows these boosts on the right. Now, those boosts are displayed differently than some of the other icons that I have. Let's make sure I'm in a party. And if I venge now, this venge is showed on the right. Now, some of you, and then this icon is in different bunch. Some of you guys might be confused because all of your boxes are in the same little thing. What you do is you press Alt and see I can move them around. Okay, so if you hit Shift, you can detach one specific box, and then you can attach it to another group just by holding it over. There we go. Now it's gone. But so I hit Shift, detach, and then okay. So I hit Shift, I detach this guy, attach this guy, detach this guy. Now they're all separate, so I want to put them back together. And then this guy I also want to detach. This guy. And then it's separate, so I want to put it together. And then the arrows. So just Shift to detach. And then this guy is still separate. Shift to detach, and then Alt to move around and group again. So this charge calculator is used with items that you uncharge. So let's say I had all my blood runes in my saying. I uncharged it. Yes. Then when I use the blood runes on it, not only can you use the preset fill, and it just fills it with however many blood runes you have, you could also press this button -23, which is customizable. You can charge calculator, you can change this number, and it will change in here. And then if I press enter, it'll leave 23 charges out of the saying, which is very useful if you want to uncharge your saying, then refill it so that you can use it for both singing and casting thralls. Same thing with the Ring of Shadows. I just use the fill generally because I don't usually leave only a few runes out, but you could. And that way, these 71 bloods, I'm not ever going to put them back in the saying. If there's any left over, it's much easier just like drop 5 bloods and put them in the saying. Next plugin, custom menu swaps. This one is very heavily used, and it basically can swap any options in a menu other than barraging characters, which I'll get to later. But so you can swap withdrawing any specific thing for a specific item, and you can also swap trading someone else. So if I were to trade someone, could be the AFK. So it swaps to offer 10. And so that can be very useful for trading runes in when you're resetting with really weird inventories. So same thing for any other rune. I just have a bunch of random stuff in here that I've used throughout my time on RuneScape. Then the really important ones are the Nihilocus, attacking Nihilocus. So these will switch depending on what role I'm on. And then Ring of Shadows is in here, and Nihilocus Principus for the princes. Next plugin, detached camera, pretty self-evident. You can just remember you have this plugin, you have to press enter and then you can move around. Before you press enter, it'll just do it'll rotate your camera instead of moving it with AWSD. Off entity hider, again, pretty self-evident, hides others. But I'll show you later how that's really helpful because you can use a hotkey to turn it on and off. I'm actually not turning it on and off. I'm editing the settings inside the plugin of the entity hider. It really does not like. Okay. Essence running. This one I use a lot. It's basically just a plugin specifically for menu entry swaps, which I used years ago when I was maxing and making money in ER, #ER. FPS control. This is actually what displays my FPS on the top right. Draw target FPS, and it can also limit your FPS. So especially if you're on like an alt and you just want it stuck at 1 FPS when you're not focused on the program, that will save a lot of your, I think, graphics card on our CPU on your PC. And then you can also have focused FPS limit. GPU just lets you see further. Draw distance. So if it's up, I can see further. Just leave it at there because I don't really need to see further. Ground markers, again, very useful plugin. Just marks the tiles. This hub party panel is an external plugin. You get it here. It basically turns on this little box, and it allows you to join a party for a raid. And so that way you can see like specs and stuff if other people are also have the same party passphrase. Low detail, again, it's just like graphics. And then I think no, never mind. Okay, yeah, just low detail. And then menu swapper extended. This one is just like, again, could be done in custom menu swaps, but it's just for specific things. I basically only use it for the spellbook swap, the UI swaps, just has spellbook swap, RCS, ancient, standard, whatever. And again, that'll be used later because I can switch that with a hotkey. You can see how it switches from RCS to ancient. For some reason it wants to go back to my plugin, so I'm going to press that. But anyhow, moving on, we have minimap. This one basically just hides your minimap, hide minimap, and can also change some dots and stuff, and you can zoom your minimap. So if you turn this on, you can like zoom out and zoom in, I guess. I don't know. Okay, yeah, you can zoom in, zoom out, which could be helpful if you want to click really far away. But I don't use it that much. I basically only use it when I want to like show a cinematic shot, and I'll turn off all my plugins, including turning off minimap, which it actually turns on a plugin to do that. NPC ID. So this is actually a really helpful plugin for essentially setting up other plugins. It allows you to get the NPC of specific, get the ID of specific NPCs, and that way you can mark them. So let me use it right here to actually set up another plugin. So I just ran into an entry mode, and I have the NPC ID plugin on. And now I'm going to get the ID of a, so it shows the ID of Maiden, but I want to get the ID of a blood spawn. So here, let's pray mage. So I want a blood spawn, and I want its ID, and it'll be in enter mode. So I have to wait for blood spawn to spawn, of course. So while we're here, let's move on to another plugin. So not empty. This one I have off because I've not misclicked in a while. But all it does basically is it removes the option to empty potions so that you can't, when you're dropping them, just misclick empty them. Because it can be very tragic if you empty your one divine potion. Nyla death indicators. This one actually connects with the party that you're in. And what it does, doesn't have any settings, but what it does is, okay, hopefully we get some blood here. Never lucky. What it does is while you're in Nilo, it sees your XP drop on the with the blowpipe or whatever, and it knows whether or not your XP drop will kill a crab, and it's calibrated for like all scales. It knows what scale you're in, and then it communicates that information to your teammates, so that not only do you know that the crab's dead, it'll just disappear. Your teammates also know. And then nigh lower, this one puts numbers on each crab, so you know which crab is from which wave. Maybe I'll play some clips from other videos of these plugins. And then player highlighter. This one again is very useful with entity hider. So it's what I'm using to. It's what I'm turning on when I press a hotkey. See, it's turning on. Now it outlines my player, and also I have it set. So I could turn that on without player highlighter, without the entity hider, but you wouldn't see it as much. But that's usually what I use it for. So I can't like click on other people, but I can see what they are doing sort of and where they are. And then prop hunt, that's just a really fun plugin. You can basically change your character to be anything. A little box pops up, I think. Yeah, this thing. And then yeah, it looks really funny. Prop hunt, where is it? I want to turn it off. Okay, so now we got the blood spawn. So now you can see NPC ID 1082, and you could do this with like Nilos as well. But now I can go to this other plugin called radius markers and create a new radius marker. Now I don't want this thing. This tile like just shows where you're standing, but what I want is the NPC ID, and now I know it because I used the NPC ID plugin 1082. Now I turn on this interaction range. I like my blood spawns pink, so I'll pick pink as a color. It's a little too dark. And now I have blood spawn that's a little too red. Maybe this. Okay. Now I have a blood spawn highlighted. It does go off of its true location. That's just how radius markers work. But that's actually really helpful because its true location is where the blood will spawn. So like I can stand in its, let me just see if it walks to me. If I'm in its true location, the ticket moves there, I won't get blooded. So it was just there and I ran away and didn't get blooded. So now I'm going to name this story mode blood spawn. And then, yeah, we'll go over radius markers later. But that's what NPC ID is for. So now we're down Thrall Helper. So this one, when I cast the Thrall, let me just die now, get some runes. Okay, this should be good. Okay, so Arceus. So I actually have to brew down because it'll be faster. But what this plugin does is when your thrall expires, we'll go over how it's highlighted and hidden later, but when your thrall expires, it will basically create like a big indicator that you haven't cast a thrall. Hopefully it works outside here. Usually it's just used when you're attacking bosses, so you might have to attack a boss. We'll see if it works. Tick counter, this just creates a panel. I'll show you. Hopefully the thrall works when I go into an instance. If it doesn't, we'll come back out. But the tick counter just tracks people's attacks and tracks how many ticks they have used. So you can see once. Oh, caps rest. Okay, so we're gonna have to wait to see that in action. Tick tracker. This one basically, again, goes in the top right corner of your screen, and it shows you how many milliseconds the last tick was. So, and that's because I have, okay, okay. And then these settings are like where the tick tracker is placed. So like this is the y-axis. So I wanted it third down because I have some other stuff there. And then what's next? Tile indicator. This plugin basically not only does it show where you're clicking, so it shows this green tile, and it also shows, so you can see if I turn it off, the green tile's gone. It also shows your true location, your orange. I have that set to the orangish pink. You can set both of those to any color, and then you can also have it show hovered over tile, but I don't use that. Then the next thing is timers. This one is just a bunch of timers that are really helpful, like your divine timer. So that's basically the biggest thing I use on here is divine potion timer. Then I have Tob info boxes. So let's see if we can see tick counter work in this raid. But I have Tob info boxes. That's what you saw at the start of the video when there was a little soda zeg. Basically, it shows you the different rooms. It shows you what time they got for specific rooms. Here's the tick counter in action. So whenever they do, so like Capster did a hammer, so it added 6 ticks to his name. And then he just did a scythe, so it added 5 ticks. They did BGS, so it added 6 ticks. And so it keeps just going up, and then it gives you the total. And then there's a tick counter. There's like a setting in here for it to reset whenever you enter an instance. So if I were to exit, it's only when you enter, not when you leave. And then enter again, it resets, and then it starts tracking again. And then this almost out of the weeds here. We have Tob QLL. This one is insanely complex and essentially does something for every single room. So like here it hides ceiling chains and bloat. And for Maiden, it tracks the crabs percentage, so like that percentage overlay there. And then for Nilos, it tracks the pillar HP. You can hide the pillars. You can show the southwest tile of the bigs. This roll selector means you can highlight specific Nilos, specific colors, and then recolors in the, like when you right click the Nilos, they're the color green if they're range, they're color of their style. Soda zeg. Basically, the biggest thing here is the instance timer. The way the maze works is there's an instance timer that starts when the instance loads. And basically what happens is the maze only checks if there are no players in the maze every 4 ticks. And if you time that right so that there are no players on the maze right as you get off the maze, you can actually take, or if it checks if it checks whether there are no players in the maze right as you get off the maze, you can actually skip a row that would normally you would take damage from the maze, but because the maze ends right as you skip over it, you take no damage. And so I'll play a clip of that here, but you want to have instance timer on both, which means they're both on during the maze and before. And since you have it before, that way you can set up your visual metronome to be the same, and you can see it before the maze as well, which can be very useful for skipping across the maze. And then also the projectiles in Sodazig, the mage balls and the range balls, I have set to Inferno. You can set them to the default Inferno or TOA. I find Inferno to just be the easiest to see. Themed Death Ball means that Death Ball is also themed Inferno, but also could be themed TOA. Hide white screen. Again, it just hides the white screen when you get chosen or when you teleport, or when you don't get chosen. It can be actually very buggy because it hides like a lot of screens. So like if I join this party now, okay, never mind. Sometimes it'll hide other interfaces, like those cutscenes right there. Show chosen text. This is like only really matters if you have the hide white screen selected, and it basically adds back the fact that you're chosen, because the white screen it hid was actually what told you it was chosen before. Offset. Debug. Everything else is off here. Zarpus. This instance timer is basically the same as the Sodazig maze, the same idea. And there's one for Nyla too. It loads on the instance when you start the room, and what this instance timer is used is exhumes can only spawn every 4 ticks. So in 4s and 5s they spawn every 4 ticks, and then in any lower scale they spawn every 8 ticks, and in solos 12 ticks. But you want to start the room on the perfect tick of that 4-tick cycle so that the exhume spawn as soon as possible, and that saves you some time. These are just some changes to the audio you hear when Zarpus screeches. I don't play with game sounds, so I don't really use them. Verzik, this tracks the tornadoes and the next tile they're going to. This tracks the reds in Verzik just the same as the mating crabs. And you can change the color of the tornado. And then there's notifies you of the green ball with a wee woo sound clip. That's interesting. And then these just are like font settings of the little numbers in the plugin. So like the font of the text over the maiden crabs. And then this is the settings for this little box right here that just reset to 00. Let me just turn off the counter. It's really tragic that all these people are losing so many ticks, but anyways, that's why I usually leave it off, because it's a pretty toxic plugin. But material skipping, this is useful for material skipping. It just marks the task you're on, basically. Yeah, pretty self-evident. Then visual metronome. So this is another big plugin. So basically, this displays this little number constantly switching every tick, and I can choose like how many ticks it goes for. So like this is 7. There are ways to change the colors instead of so what this does is it changes the colors every single cycle it goes through. So since I set it to 6 colors, it goes to 6 colors. And then if you set this to 1, it changes the color every single time and keeps changing the number. Whereas if you set it to 2, it just goes 1, 2, and changes the number. So the difference between 1 and 2 for this tick count is a really big deal, because now it'll go to as many colors it has. So I usually just leave it on 4 and leave the colors on 2. The number of colors has to be 2. I really should raise the alpha of this guy. Be the same. Oh, they are the same. See that? Okay. And yeah, that's visual metronome. So here. So it looks like the thrall helper didn't work. So I'm gonna go into an entry mode. Okay, so I still have one more plugin that's not highlighted to go over, but I'm gonna go into an entry mode with the thrall helper, and hopefully it'll work there. Okay, so I'm gonna cast the thrall. Let me get some potions. All right, so now I'm gonna go through all of the plugins on this sidebar as well that I may not have already touched on because I didn't necessarily favorite every single plugin. So I'm gonna run in Scythe and Thrall and attack. Hopefully the Thrall walks towards the boss. So again, this timer, this timers plugin also has thralls on it. So now I'll start attacking, and then hopefully once it despawns, it will it'll show you what the thrall tracker does. Thrall helper. There's some settings here you can configure. And then, so let's go through. So this skills, this is just normal runelight. Most people use this. Grand Exchange, World Hopper. Everyone knows about this. Timers for birdhouses. This bank plugin is actually very helpful. It basically allows you to find like the most valuable thing or the most quantish thing you have the most quantity of in your bank, or even alphabetical. Basically allows you to look at your bank from anywhere in the game. Lookup page, loot tracker, PM highlights. This is actually a really interesting plugin. So I can change so if I add washed CJ, and then I change the name color. Now let's change the message color to the same. Now his name, if I DM him, okay, I have to save it. Now if I DM him and say, yo, it'll be blue. So it'll be the name, whatever color I just picked. Let's keep going. So then radius markers. So that works with NPC ID, and the way I have it configured is I only use interaction range. You can add this thing max range, but I find it really buggy. I think I just need to turn off like a bunch of things. But basically what the max range can let you do is I have heal. Okay, look. We have the thrall. This is the thrall helper plugin. It's just spamming at me. You need to summon a thrall. It's going to be very helpful like if you forget about that. But I have a radius marker in here called healed group, and it doesn't actually have an NPC ID. It just has this max range. And what that does is it just marks this coordinates of a tile. And that's all it does. It doesn't mark a specific NPC, but I still haven't figured out how to not have it make those weird purple. Because I'm assuming that's basically that specific one is from the story mode blood spawn. I have to turn off the max range there, but there's some other ones that I need to work on. So like heal group should be green as well. But when in doubt, I just only use interaction range. And then, yeah, I will put in the description a paste bin with all of my radius markers, but it essentially marks every single Nilo spawn, Nilo range, mage, melee, verzik, baboons, Akka, Ardorvis even. That looks like I do have max range. Okay. Yeah, and you can like make them full compressed or uncompressed. Screen markers, again, self-evident. Something that is really nice with screen markers is you can add a screen marker like if you press the plus button with the screen marker and then you mouse over stuff on your screen, you can mark specific things. And if I click like on a screen marker inventory for some reason, click that, click check mark, and it already has a box there. And I usually go with the 2 pixels wide. And if you go to 0, that's gone. And you could make it as thick as you want, technically. But you could also use the fill. So yeah, so now it's like there's a little green overlay over the entire thing. Just gonna die here. And then again, you can name any of your big humid. You can name any of your screen markers and change the colors. Task tracker. This one's very helpful for leagues. I don't use it anymore because leagues is over. Transmog. Pretty self-evident. Essentially, I transmog my Armadale to this, and then the Masori Assembler. I transmog that to the Myth Cape, the Myth Max Cape, because I feel like it looks way better. Smith Max Cape does not get much love. I really like it. And you can transmog animations in this too, so it can get really complex, but I don't use it that much. Inferno Tracker, again, I don't use it much. Raid Reloader, kind of dead content now because I can just right click. I think they've changed Cox now. Calculator, this is just default RuneLight. Party plugin, I went over this before. Notes, Quest Helper. This is the party plugin again. You can be connected to the party without this hub panel. You just do it here. And this plugin is actually in the default RuneLight. It's not an external plugin. But you generally just want to do, you can see how I'm connected. If I leave here, I'll have left here. If I join Horse here, I'll have joined here. And then RuneLight version, Flag Caves, Helper, Twitch chat, or Twitch. There's Twitch plugin. I actually need to work on this a little bit. This one, everybody's been asking about this plugin. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna delete all of these and recreate them because it's actually not. It's very unintuitive on how to create this plugin. It even says see wiki for usage guides, and there's a link to the GitHub, but people can't read. Anyways, so now I'm gonna make all the plugins I just deleted. So the first one was Entity Hider on, off, arc, and that's saying that I want both Entity Hider off and the Arceus to be on my swap on Spellbook. Now I have all of those settings already selected in my other plugins. So all I have to do right now is select the plugins that I want to edit and go back to these settings when I change them. And that is Entity Hider, check mark. That is Player Highlighter, check mark, because I'm going to turn that on. And that's also Menu, Entry, Swapper Extended. So this one. That one switches the Arceus. Now, all I do is set a keybind, save it. So we're only halfway done now. Now we go back to our other plugins. So now I go to Entity Hider. Entity Hider. settings, and I hide others, I hide friends, I hide friends chat members, I hide clan chat members, I hide ignores, and I hide myself. I don't want to hide 2D, don't want to hide myself 2D, don't want to hide NPCs, that's it. And then I leave the hide dead NPCs and hide thralls on. Oh, something I didn't go over was better NPC highlight. Let's not start for some reason. Go over that later. So now I edited entity hider, but I still want to turn on player highlighter. So I do that. Now I've done those two things, but I still want to change cut menu swapper extended to ancient because I want this swap to be ancient since I do a lot of spellbook swap freezing when people are hidden. Now I go back to the plugin presets. You can see this is off now. I press plus entity hider on ace and C, short for ancients. Now I go to settings. I go to menu, I go to entity hider. I go to player highlighter. I go to menu entries extended, and then I think that's it. I press Z. Now I save it. Save it. Okay. Now I have it set to the same hotkey so I can toggle between them. This kind of breaks if you have 3 of the same hotkey. You can only really have 2. So now, not only am I swapping whether or not people are highlighted and the entity header, I'm also swapping the menu entry swapper on my spellbook. Now I'm also going to add 3 other presets, which I have for Nyla roles. And those roles change. So you can either be mage, melee, or range role in Nyla. There's also melee freeze and some others, but those are the basics. And those change. You should change your custom swaps accordingly. So right now, I have attack Nyla-ish, that's melee, hag, that's mage, and I have talks range commented out. So that means they'll be lowest priority, and I use that on the mage role and duos, but basically in the mage role and everything. And so that means I have the settings, my custom entry swapper, for the mage role right now. So I want to go to make a new plugin preset, call it mage role. Okay. I'm going to set the keybind to Alt M, save, go to settings, custom menu swaps, check. Now that one's done. That's all I have to do. So now I want to edit my role to be range. This is how I like my swaps for range. I just have talks and then hag and then ish. Now, if you go back to plugin presets, you'll see that the mage role is off. I think the other thing I like for this is I comment out this dragon arrow because I just want to give 1 dragon arrow when I'm on a range roll. And now I just add range roll. Okay. Solo. Okay. And then I go to settings. Nope. I go to settings. Oh. Range roll / solo. What? Oh, it doesn't like the name. Range roll dash solo. Okay, hopefully dash works. Okay, so that works. I go to settings. I go to custom menu swaps, check mark, back out. I set a hotkey, Alt B, save. Now I'm going to change it so it's just melee. So I'm going to comment out the mage. Okay. And then I'm going to put melee below. So now it's prioritizes melees first, then range, then mages last, or mages not at all. Then I go back to my plugin presets. I go plus melee. Okay. Now I go settings, custom menu swaps, check mark X, then out, then press Alt N. Now you just have to remember those hotkeys, and when you're in Nilo, press Alt M, press B, Alt N. So if you press Alt M, now I know I'm on the mage roll. I can check if it's right by I have to go in and out of this page, custom menu swaps. Now it's the hag is the highest priority. because the tox is commented out, and I know I'm on mage roll. Now if I go back out, press Alt B, go back to custom swaps. Now tox is the highest priority, and then hag and then ish. And that's pretty much plugin presets. Now I'm going to go to Better NPC Highlight. This essentially allows you to highlight any NPC based on name or ID. And I generally used it for thralls. So thralls have a specific ID, which are here. And with Entity Hider, I hide them. And then with NPC ID, Better NPC Highlight, I show their outline. So this will show all three, I think all three major thralls. It doesn't show the inferior thralls, so they're just hidden. And if you went to NPC ID, you could see, okay. So with NPC ID, it doesn't show the thralls IDs, but like Entity Hider, the thralls there. NPC ID. Yeah, it doesn't show their IDs, but those are the IDs for the greater thralls. Better NPC Highlight. These ones. And then everything else. The only thing I use Better NPC Highlight is for Entity Hider. You can input blood spawns, and that way you can't click the blood spawns in Maiden. I think I'm also going to put that in the outline. And then I'm going to add the blood spawn, the story mode. Story mode, this ID, add that here, add that here. And then I'm also going to add, I'm also going to add hard mode blood spawns. So I go here, blood spawn. I think it's this one, and put it here, and yeah. Now my blood spawns will be hidden and highlighted. So it means I can actually, they're not entirely hidden. I can see their outlines, but they cannot be clicked on. And then now all I have to do, yeah, that is Better NPC Highlight. As plugin presets. Hope you guys have a great night, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully Caps Lock will one day get GM5s. One day. Bye, guys.